Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Kamran Loghman. He is a CEO, inventor of Pepper Spray, a professor of business and of an Eastern philosophy, and an expert in Enlightened Warriors philosophy and discipline. Welcome to the show, Kamran.
Good afternoon for you and good morning for me, and thank you.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Kamran. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn from you about reinventing life. We'll learn from you about leadership and much more. But before that, let's learn a bit about your journey, your background, so that people know who they are listening to.
I appreciate that. I'll just go quickly in that because I really don't want to make today about myself, but about the message of the Enlightened Warrior tradition. As you mentioned, I've been CEO for decades. I actually, one of the companies that I founded became the Inventor of Pepper Spray. I hold all the patents for law enforcement application. I actually was on location in India several times in the 80s introducing the products to the government. And then, I trained, certified, for more than 4,000 law enforcement officers, collaborated with the federal governments and FBI and all of that, wrote all their manuals, trained them. So that was one aspect of my life. And I had several other companies that have been developing very successfully, and they're still in existence. Academically, as you mentioned, I was advisor actually to senior executives exclusively at Apple for more than a decade. I'm a professor of MBA for business and also professor of Eastern philosophy, happens to be with focus on Indian philosophy. Lectured on warrior traditions heavily at U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. So that's really my area of expertise and interest. From a very young age, I'm just trying to go to my journey so that I can justify what the message is here. I was very curious. I wanted to know what is the meaning of all this? What is the purpose? I was kind of a seeker. And something very bizarre happened, which really has nothing to do with this, but it was just spark of my start. My mother's side were from Georgia, Russia. And in one of the times that I had with my grandmother at her house, my great aunt, which was much elderly at that time, she started talking about the fact that she met Rasputin, of all people. And that kind of intrigued me because I was a little boy. I didn't know if he's a good man or a bad man or whatever. And so I searched for one of the best person I could find for the Eastern method of hypnosis. And by age of 14, I was hypnotizing everybody. So as you can imagine, the mind of a little kid. But that wasn't enough. I was really wanted to know what is going on deeper than that. And happened to be that I started my search, and for the past 50 years, I have been training under probably top 3 people on location in India who were enlightened masters. I've gone deeply into the philosophy, advanced philosophy of yoga and Kashmir Shaivism and all the other stuff that, people study. But parallel to that, I was also, since the age of 11, studying Japanese martial arts. I'm not talking about the kind of thing you see in your local sports shop. I mean, really traditional classical warrior studies I was doing. And so take these 2 routes, the business route, the philosophical route, and the martial art route. As I'm just going through life, journey like everybody else, and I'm studying all these things, I find out that the warrior arts continuously, historically, are pointing back to South Asia, actually. And that was very interesting. And nobody has done massive studies on this. I did, actually. I collaborated with, for example, the curator of museum in New Delhi to find out what's happening with these arts. I came, actually, and traveled the entire India, including other countries, but entire India to find out, where all the warrior schools were, where the old manuscripts were, what did they really say. And as I did that, I started finding out that there's something interesting is coming up. The more that I was absolutely, immersed in the yoga or meditation or martial arts and philosophy and even business and everything else. And I am going to put all this thing together in a second so it makes sense for people what it means for reinventing life and leadership. I realized that none of these, although they were excellent in their own way, they were a comprehensive product. And what I mean by comprehensive is that human life is very complex. We have the mind and body. We have relationships with people. We have the financial issues, which most people have in life. And then you have a philosophy of life, which means what is the meaning of all this? What is the purpose of this? What am I doing here? And when I look at that, there was one thing that kept on coming out across the world in all cultures. And that was what is called the heroic journey. And I want to emphasize on that for a second. Heroic journey is a metaphor for life, a symbol. If you look at it mythologically, in stories and tales, the hero or the warrior goes on a journey, all right? And there's stories, of course, in every culture differently. He struggles between good and evil. I mean, imagine our own personal life. And there's always two battles. One is an external battle against forces, and the other one is an internal battle within the mind of the warrior. They're trying to conquer the negativities, everything else that just, insecurities, whatever. And then they have to overcome challenges in these stories. And then the warrior or the hero returns back to his village completely transformed. And at that point, he becomes a catalyst, all right, for the people to change. Well, this is not so light. Let me just say how much it impacted people. George Lucas, who made the Star Wars movie, actually credited all of his movies to heroic journey that was actually explained at that time, and collaborated with Professor Joseph Campbell, who was a mythologist and spoke in detail about heroic journey. So this is not something I just came up with. I just studied this very deeply. The warrior metaphor that I mentioned here, the warrior, the concept of warrior, is an archetype. We're not talking about violence and all of that. We're talking about the hero here. So you find it in every culture. Certain culture, however, happens to be that I'm having a discussion with you, documented this better than anywhere else, and that was India. And India really documented these things, but is scattered all over the place. It's not like you can find it in one place. So somebody had to come and put this together, who had the background, the academic background, the business background, research background, to do all of that and make sense out of it. So, for example, something of interest is that when I was researching in India, I came across something that everybody takes, for granted. And okay, you study all the scriptures that are out there, the manuscripts that are out there, but I found that original founder of yoga and meditation, even Lord Shiva himself was a warrior. His son Kartikeya was a lord of war. Every character, in fact, I'm just talking about India because that's where we are today. Every character in Indian mythology, in the epics, from Mahabharata, Ramayana, Puranas, and just keep on going, they're all warriors. Why? And when you look at that, that's a warrior archetype. It's not about violence or killing or soldiers. We're not talking about the caste of warriors here. We're talking about the hero. And there is a reason for it. And in fact, further up, you find that the meditation and yoga and the study of consciousness actually comes up from the warrior tradition in ancient time. In fact, every rishi in their schools, which called Rishikulas, they were all warriors. And in those schools, they taught them about how to cook and eat and this, that, the other, archery, Dhanurveda, and everything else, to everyday life. And of course, enlightenment at the end. So Enlightened Warriors, the more I studied, I found that is a comprehensive path that has been going on, because it talks about the whole journey of life. Because these people were not, as I mentioned, tribal warriors. They were epic warriors, if you can mention it. They were giants of mind, giants of heart, really the grand wizards of life. They had completed the heroic journey. It's like a snake that sheds its skin. They have completely transformed themselves. They're awake, crystal clear, powerful. They're wise. Somebody that you look up to, you want to learn from. And they're phenomenal achievers, incredible strategies. I mean, you find that their warrior stories, in fact, in the battles and war, they were complete creator and innovators in how they thought and did all that. And exceptional creative thinkers, that's what they were. One thing I want to mention before I go further, the warriors, studies that I did, enlightened warrior tradition, is not the domain of men. In fact, throughout history, you find enlightened female giants all across the globe, because it has nothing to do with who you are as a person, physical body. It has to do with your heart, mind, and spirit. That's what they were. So decades of, it goes by being a CEO, being a professor, studying the philosophy, and doing all of these things in my own personal pursuit. I found that very few people have been both researchers and practitioners of this path, which I have been. And so I've been there, believe me, 50 years. So I've left no stones unturned. So this is why I decided, before I'm getting older, before I just exit this world, I should put this down and share it with people. So this is why I developed riseofgiants.com, so that people can get to see the enlightened warrior philosophy and discipline available to everyone. So I'm here today to start the conversation, introduce it, and talk about, as you mentioned, reinventing and transforming life and leadership in every aspect that is going on. In fact, this has been tested. Exclusively sections of this was shared at Apple for more than a decade with people and applied. It wasn't just going from one year coming to the other, applied. So the discipline of warriors is about, we are free to fall or rise as giants. This is very important to think. So we're not victims. It's how we think. And so they're practical. Giants are very practical. They're voices of wisdom and transformation of personal life, transformation of workplace, and these are and these type of leaders, you can imagine, if you're developing them, they're going to be the leaders of the future and the leaders of nations and business. And this is very important to bring that up now, mostly now in this day and age. And the way that warrior did it is, all of the traditions, when you study it, is through what they call, instead of steps, it's like 5 steps to this or that, the other, they called it the gates. These gates were doorways. And why the gates? Because each time you enter a gate, you enter into a space. And it was a paradigm shift, complete change until you go to the next one. And they introduced 17 gates, which is a comprehensive, journey path, of our entire life, our entire work life, business, relationship, prosperity, mental fitness, physical fitness, all of that. They just was part of those 17 gates. So the entire philosophy and discipline of the enlightened warriors is really encapsulated in these 17 gates. And, let me just quickly go through them. I don't want to really discuss it, because people say, what are these gates about? For example, it starts with purpose, meaning and purpose, and cosmology, in terms of what is our meaning with the universe and who we are, what we are in here. Very practical. They don't get into paranormal or things like that. Assumptions and beliefs, how it controls everything that we do. Our perception, how is our perception works? Are we really thinking straight? Even they get deeply, as I mentioned earlier, to the nature of consciousness, of human mind. They discuss both physically and mentally the concept of agility, speed, endurance, because we all need that in life, whatever we do. Of course, they mentioned the other stuff that we all battle with. It's called the battle within, actually, one of the gates, which is stress, anxiety, fears. Imagine a leader, having anxiety and fears. How can you lead? You have to conquer those things. And in fact, everybody were taught leadership, which I have. I mean, in all of the MBA schools and different this, that, the other. They say leadership begins with you and how you develop yourself. But giving lip service to the leadership is one thing, doing it is another thing. And this is why the enlightened tradition really gets deep into you, trying to transform you from within and without. They even discuss self-sabotage, which is addictions, things like that, because we face all of that in life. One of the biggest things is unworthiness, and our self-identity. Am I good enough? And you can find that in every age. It's not something matter of youth or middle. I mean, it could be elderly and still feel you're unworthy. And of course, overcoming difficult challenges. Who better than warriors, who are enlightened warriors? That tells you, how do you really face life? How do you, overcome challenges? How, when you fall from the horse, you get up and get back on the horse. You don't go down. Japanese samurais, in fact, another warrior tradition, but not I want to explain this because a lot of people, romanticize samurais, and that was one of my expertise. I'm not talking, I've been going to be very plain about the drunken samurais who drink sake every day. We're talking about the enlightened samurais who were really top samurais. These people, talk about the fact that, you need to have codes in life, the way you live, and all of that. It's a part of their way of thinking. And they have a saying, it's called Nanak Korobeya Oki, which means 6 times down, 7 times up. That means you never count how many times you go down. You always count how many times you go up. And then you have creative strategies, and there's stories after stories. With lack of time, we cannot go to those things, but in an amazing way, how they became innovative, how they became thinking. And you can see that right now in all the highest technology. People have to look at creativity from a different point of view. In fact, I taught creativity at Apple, an innovation mindset based on the warrior strategies, how you have to look at the same reality that everybody else is looking from a different perspective. And that's only when the thoughts of creativity comes into picture. Then, of course, luck and prosperity. Oh, I'm undeserving. I'm not lucky, or luck just happens, or whatever. And how do you take that concept in a practical, modern finance way and merge them together so that people can understand? You can take the horse by the rein and actually get into where you want to get into your life. And I've seen that too many times, because I've advised more than 1,000 CEOs, how people can get really to where they need to get. And of course, the last step in the heroic journey is the fulfillment and enlightenment of warriors. So for now, what we have here at Rise of Giant, it's a podcast. It's an audio podcast, which is the Rise of Giants, if you search for it. And it offers the complete philosophy and discipline of Enlightened Warriors. Tales, stories, physical, mental practices, even combative arts. I mean, anything that is interesting, people want to just engage with. Their advanced meditation, their creative strategies, focusing on success and prosperity, and, much more. But going forward, I am trying to develop, and I'm doing that with my team, many powerful and fascinating programs that are going to be free, so that people can really worldwide, globally, even if they're on their telephone, they can get into it. Okay, how did these guys do it? How did these guys face fear? How did these guys face anxiety? Okay, well, I feel like I can't get to the next step. How did they do it? I mean, listen, they died in battle for thousands of years. So it's been acid tested, as you call it. It's been battle tested. It's not like something that is just coming out as a new concept. And another side, of course, for this thing, I do, some life and business advising in Rise of Giants. But that's a different thing. If anybody wants to reach me, they can reach me to the website, riseofgiants.com. And all the programs are available to them. So this is really, Ajay, the Rise of Giants and my journey. And, feel free to ask me any question, but if for the sake of time, whatever time we have left. So I wanted to really quickly go over it. I didn't want to speed up, but this is really where I come from, my path. And that's why I really feel compelled that I need to get this out. So this is not a new business for me. If I want to do a new business, I go sell transaction and sell more pepper spray. I'm here because I think people need this, and it's important.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kamran. So, when you talk of warriors, when you talk of enlightened warriors, you're talking about giants in today's time. Do you think there are people who are earlier they used to say in gurukuls everywhere, you need to be a nice disciple to be able to take all that wisdom for you. Not everyone gets that wisdom from a guru. You got to be to know about it, you have to deserve it. Do you think a lot of leaders deserve this? Where will you find the deserving warrior, who will need this sort of a wisdom? I think they are fighting their own battles. They are not warriors, but they are fighting their own battles of mediocrity. How will you make such pygmies into giants, Kamran?
I think it's a fantastic question, Ajay. Let me give you an example. Let's say if I don't know how to play piano, all right? Just because I cannot become Beethoven, all right, or Mozart, I can't give up on piano. So if I start learning the piano, I can get to somewhere at least. Okay, not everybody needs to become Mozart and Beethoven. But just because you don't become that doesn't mean you become complacent and stay at zero. So that example I want to mention. There is a religiosity or religion that in all cultures has been, I'm not anti-religion. Let me just say that to you. That has been added to the Enlightenment tradition. All right. So it's the concept of deserving and all of that is not the concept. The concept is that every person, all right, who wants to walk the heroic journey, it goes through life and through this journey and get to where it needs to get. But there is a difference. Either you consciously make a decision to go through the heroic journey and look at the battle-tested roadmap that was given to you, which is not a difficult one. It's an easy one developed so that people can follow. You take that and gate by gate, you go forward to where you need to lead, and you're definitely going to become a better leader than you were before. Or life is going to force you to go to the journey of life, and you get wounded, you get injured, you can get mistakes, failures, a lot of things happens. So it's basically, we're going to walk the heroic journey one way or the other. One is with map, one is without the map. All right. Look at the example. So the questions is that, our model of leadership has to change. If you look at historically, Plato talked about philosopher king. Our model has to change so that we bring leaders that are truly, have been battle tested. That doesn't mean on a small department in business, it has to be like that. But the very top leader needs to be at least measured in that way. And other leaders in other departments have to be walking the heroic journey so that they can, when they get up from the bed and the wrong side of the bed, as it says in the morning, they have the tools to make sure that they put themselves back on the right path so they can lead people. They can become better example for people. So I think that is very important to realize that it is not just about giving up and being deserving. I think every person is deserving, if they're healthy mentally and physically, to be able to grow, to be able to develop. And it's not age related. You could be 80 years old and suddenly wake up with tremendous energy because something of greatness has been offered to you.
Absolutely, Kamran. So one of the requisites, if I understand, could be that you have to, for a warrior, when you go on your own journey, then you leave a lot of things behind. Nowadays, a lot of journeys of leaders is about not reinventing, but finding much more power for themselves, or existence, extending their own existence in whatever way as possible, through whatever means as possible. Now, that is not a warrior's journey, is it? And so I want to understand, how can leaders leave those attachments, go actually on their journey, find the truth of knowledge, and then come back and act as a catalyst. If that doesn't happen, can they be really, the enlightened warriors in today's time?
Yes, and I will explain to you, is because the fact is, first of all, the prosperity, all right? The concept of, India perfectly explains that in the concept of Lakshmi, the concept of prosperity as an energy, as a Shakti in India, that it's part of your life, part of your attitude, part of your vision, and what you do. The warriors are not against that. They're not against money. They're not against prosperity because it's needed. I mean, how are you going to buy bread? I mean, so that is there. So that's just nothing that they shun. But it goes back to the codes of warrior, the ethical values of the warriors. So when you develop a leader with those codes and ethical values, there is nothing wrong with having a bigger house and doing this and going after success and making prosperity and making, your life more comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is that you don't follow the right codes and you step on people. Because, you step on people. Why? Because you feel weak. You're not a warrior. You feel weak. And by trying to make people smaller, you feel greater. So the codes are introduced. That's why in Japan, you have the Bushido. In the time of the Tokugawa samurai, in the 1600s, they developed the Bushido code, the code of warriors, so they don't become murderers. And they just go around and just enforce their, just violence to people. So in yoga, you have that. That's why I said yoga is so much part of the warrior thing. You have the yamas and niyamas. So, but people just talk about yamas and niyamas. How many hatha yogis you know? How many yogis actually talk about yamas and niyamas? To imbibe that, the warriors actually had a system, so that becomes part of your reflection, part of your character, part of your being. So as you develop a person, even a child, from the early on, you have to develop those things in them, so that become part of your personality. And you realize why it should be part of your personality, because it makes you enjoy your success and prosperity. Whereas if you reach it the wrong way, you're always looking behind your back. You're always worried. You always have anxiety. That's one of the main reasons.
Right, Kamran. You talk about rise of giants, and it's a powerful framework used by Apple executives and elite leaders. Quickly, if you can tell us about this, and is it an internal thing that they use? How as an individual, I would know that okay, this leader has used this framework, and this is how they have changed the world. I want to understand: is it only for internal usage, or is it actually to serve people outside Apple?
I mean, when you start learning piano, is internal. I mean, you're not playing piano just, for everybody else. You have to learn piano by yourself. So it has to begin with internally. That's just what it is. But eventually people start listening and hearing your piano. So it becomes for other people. So when you pick up on unique people that have been in this path, you see their discipline, you see the way they live, you see where they are. Now, that doesn't mean all giants are the same. All right. So it's not about, there is 4 legs to life, according to the giants. All right. And you'll see that it's very much along the stuff that in the Vedas and all that talk about. Imagine a table. It has to have 4 legs, otherwise it's going to collapse. One of them is the mind and body. That means the fitness of the mind and body. They're not talking about 100% health or anything like that. Just the fitness, the clarity of the mind, the sharpness of the mind and the body. And the warriors give you examples of how to do that. The other leg is your relationships. If you're miserable and you're having problems and all that, that just brings you down. The leg is broken. The third leg is your prosperity. If you can make ends meet and you don't have enough food or whatever it is in life, then you're always focusing on that leg and you're not paying attention to the other one. Of course, the other one, the fourth, is purpose and meaning of life. It's why do you get up in the morning in the first place? So those are the 4 that is out there. That doesn't mean you can have the biggest leg on this one leg, which is called prosperity, and have a lot of money, but to be totally miserable in your relationship. All right. So it's not about how big you're in one area. It's about how about the balance of the table. So when I say giants, let's not push them to the epic tradition as if these guys are gods, of the Vikings. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a balance in life. How can you create a balance from where you can start leading, from where you can become an example to other people? And you look at people with compassion because you're trying to raise them. Of course, if somebody is not following the rules and wants to become rogue, I mean, the warriors are warriors. They will throw you out. End of the story. But what about creating a team that is unified in vision, in passion? They are there because they want to change the world. I remember always Steve Jobs used to say when we used to talk to him about, a phone, he always said, we don't make phones. We're creating an experience. So that's what it is. It's about changing people, about in a way what you create. So when you have that kind of vision, it really impacts people. So it does, Ajay, starts internally. And then like music, people starts hearing it. And then you can see who knows music. A good leader can see that and who doesn't know music.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Kamran, in a nutshell, what is it that you want to achieve? How you are achieving it, so that people know, okay, this is how I can get the best from Kamran.
Personally, I don't have the delusion of grandeur here. I'm not trying to change the world one by one and all of that. I just want to make sure that this project and program is available to everyone, and so that they can go on riseofgiants.com and they can look into it and listen to the podcast. And we're continuously developing, just like yourself, so that we can have the program available. But at the same time, I'm here. If anybody wants to email me, they want advice, they want questions or whatever, I can help. So I am here to pass this on to people out there, because the vacuum of it, I believe, it's going to become what I did as a child, a lifetime of search. I mean, I've already done that for people. I've made the recipe for cooking. So it's ready to be eaten. So why just go start from everything from the beginning? So that's where I am. I just want to share this, and I want to be available so people can come in. By the way, if you go to riseofgiants.com and sign up, which is for free, you'll get all the programs coming to you for free all the time, and you can have it. So basically that's that.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Ajay.